And now, your host, Gregory Foster.
And hello, everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of Access in Radio. I'm your host, Gregory Foster, where we bring inspiration to balance your life. And on today's show, we have a very special guest, Kayoko Mitsumatsu, founder of Yoga Gives Back, an incredible charitable foundation that enables donations from yoga organizations in the United States, where people go to do their yoga at, and they give back to the country of origin in India. So on today's show, we're going to really kind of talk about the theme of the essence of goodwill and how we gain so much value by giving to others. So everyone say hello to Kayoko. Kayoko, how are you today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
It's wonderful to have you today.
Thank you very much.
So I'd like to share with the listeners how I met you. So my good friend Mick, who runs a yoga studio called Jao Yoga in Long Beach, he invited me to your charitable event at his yoga studio. I know many of our listeners do yoga, which is about an hour to 90 minutes of really wonderful balancing flows and exercises that help stretch the body and mind, open the heart and the soul. So he basically has a studio in Long Beach and invited you to come to an event. Didn't tell me much about it, but it really kind of appealed to me, just conceptually, the concept of Yoga Gives Back. So I went. You showed some wonderful videos of the work that you've done over there, and I just fell in love with the cause, and I just really wanted to get this out to the viewers because I really love the connection, the heart connection, and the concept of goodwill that actually gets in the pockets of the people you want to help, and then you get the chance to actually see how the difference gets made in their life, right?
Yep.
So take a moment and share with the listeners, your background and your own personal story and how you got here.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Greg. Yoga Gives Back, I founded this in 2007 while I was practicing yoga, just like anybody who's listening to this, who might be taking a yoga class here and there, feeling really good after the class and feeling healthier and enriched spiritually. Mm-hmm. And background is documentary filmmaker. So at that time I was filming documentary about social entrepreneurs. And it was just after Dr. Muhammad Yunus from Bangladesh has received Nobel Peace Prize on his revolutionary microfinancing success in his own country. And I learned so much about microfinancing. Then I was taking yoga class, and then I was also taking some donation classes at the yoga studio, who was giving some donations raised from the class to like tsunami relief and HIV and so on. But one day I just realized there is nothing that's focused to give back to India. So to make a long story short, I talked to my teacher and I suggested that we give back to India using this microfinancing idea, which is a small donation, small money, like $25 a month that you give to poor people in the developing countries. They can use that money as a microloan and no credit, nothing is required, just has to pay back. That's the only requirement, pay back in 1 year. And Dr. Muhammad Yunus has proved that it's been very successful in Bangladesh and some other world. So I just put this idea together, giving back to India to help 75% of the population who still live under $2 a day by giving this microfinancing idea to help especially poor women. And so we started working immediately with Grameen Foundation, which is Dr. Yunus's global wing, replicating his microfinancing platform in all over the world. And they liked our idea because yoga, as you just said, Greg, it has $6 billion market in the United States alone. Over almost $20 million practice yoga in this country. So I think Grameen Foundation immediately saw the impact that we could raise approaching yoga community. And just one thing, our organization is not just focused on the United States. We are outreaching to globally. And so far we raised about $31,000 and we are targeting to reach to $50,000 by the end of this year.
Wow. So that is just spectacular. I want to take a step back on that because that's kind of the theme of the show here, the essence of goodwill. So this started as a film project for social causes you were doing, and you just became so inspired by what you saw in India that you decided to form your own cause? Is that kind of it?
Yeah. My profession as a documentary filmmaker, I just got so much into this microfinancing idea. And we actually ended up filming a Kiva.org, who was making just $1 million that time, and now they're raising over $300 million a year. So microfinancing at that time was, like exploding in many parts of the world, especially in the United States, I think, as a conscious way of giving some small money to people who need in the world. And together with that idea and my being healthier and happier with yoga, I just put these two ingredients together, and then we have Yoga Gives Back.
Wow, I really love that. So I started doing yoga, I want to say about 6 years ago, and I had been very athletic before that, played a lot of basketball, had a lot of knee problems and stress in my life, and I went to yoga, and it just, really transformed my life and my body, and I'm so much healthier than I was even 10 or 15 years ago. Have you found that to be the case for yourself as well?
Yeah, I do. I have been also very athletic all my life. Well, now I'm an Ashtanga practitioner, so it's very physical, and but I really like it. One thing I learned from yoga also is it's not just physical. Very early on, my teacher told me yoga, which is actually what we call yoga, is really asana, which is, just one part of many layers of deep philosophical, spiritual discipline that India has created and offered us. And so I just learned that, oh my God, what I'm feeling so great about, which I called yoga, was just asana and just small part of the huge cultural tradition called yoga. So that kind of took me also to start reading, India's philosophy. I'm Buddhist, because I'm Japanese, but I really, really didn't know a lot of tradition that came from India to Japan through Buddhism. And also a lot of new aspects of India's philosophy has been fascinating to me.
Amazing in its transformative qualities. I think it came to the U.S., in the late 50s, early 60s? Is that kind of the right time?
Well, Vivekananda came to United States late 1800s, I think, for the Chicago World Conference Religion. He's the root of the Vedanta Society in the United States and the world. But of course, at that time, it wasn't asana, physical practice. It was more like spiritual.
Meditative.
Yes.
The yoga that we know today, which, again, if the listeners haven't taken a yoga class, there's many different styles, different modalities that relate to how yoga helps your body.
Yeah.
I think in the old days, people thought it was just a meditative exercise. You go to meditate and you om, but it can be very physical, right?
Yes. I think I learned that the purpose of physical part of yoga is to be able to really meditate for a long time without any physical strength or, like peacefully really meditate.
Yeah, and that's the thing that amazes me about it is the balancing quality, no matter how intense or how light it is, and then that shavasana at the end where you just get this beautiful peace. And I think you mentioned at the top of the hour, which was you get this wonderful sense of peace, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Well, that's why a lot of times, when you come out of yoga class, you have to watch out how you're driving or walking because you're kind of so lightheaded,
Yeah, I think Mick Chaw is really good about helping us get grounded. I think if you've taken his yoga there in Long Beach called Jaw Yoga, he does on his Wednesday class and the one you went to, he does a lot of storytelling, and then at the end really helps you ground back in. So he has a wonderful style in his approach to yoga, and that's how we got to meet you. So.
Yeah, that's right.
So I see your mission statement is to mobilize global yoga community to empower women in India to build sustainable livelihoods. So share with me a little bit more about that. And the reason, where I'm going with this is, India basically gave us yoga as a gift, and it has become a booming $6 billion industry and clearly transformed many lives. And you look at the quality of life in our country, how we support the people in our country, how the people in our country support each other, and our quality of life, it's quite a bit different here than it is in India, correct?
Yes. Well, when I first founded this organization, I had actually never been to India yet. I have only seen and read and, saw the documentaries and so on, but I had lived in Brazil when I was much younger in the 70s. I was born and grew up in Tokyo in the 60s and 70s in a really booming economy time. Everybody's working hard. Economy was fantastic, they growing. And then I went to Brazil and then I saw the real poverty right in every day facing me at the traffic lights, kids begging me money, huge discrepancy between the extremely wealthy and the poor. So it hit me very hard in my consciousness, and that's why I became a documentary filmmaker. So going back to our mission statement, Yoga Gives Back's mission statement, to mobilize the global yoga community to empower women in India to build sustainable livelihoods. We decided to say this because India has so many, as I said, 75% of the population, just like Brazil, has living under the poverty line. And then there are some very wealthy people too, and you just wonder, what can we do with this issue? And as I said, if the global yoga community, while everybody's taking a class, if you just chip in one class fee, which is about $10 to $25, that can become a seed money for a poor woman in India to start a business. We could see very quickly that if we continue to bring in some money from yoga studios all over the world and continue to help women in India in this way with microfinancing, we can really make some difference here. And you don't have to be a millionaire to do this.
And so you're saying if one person donated the approximate fee that they would pay to go to a yoga class to get this wonderful experience that we've been talking about, that can help a single person in India in a profound way. That's what you said, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's why Yoga Gives Back's mantra is, for the cost of one yoga class, you can change your life. And that is true. It's average like $20 to $25 a month. That's all a woman needs to start a business.
So let's take a step back on that. 'Cause I don't know if that lands on everyone. When you think about poor, and we have poor in the United States. Clearly, there's a very significant poverty issue in the United States. However, when you look at the poorest of the poor in the U.S. and you look at their living conditions and what they have access to, $15 wouldn't go very far for them, right?
That's true. That's really true.
And when you put it in that perspective of being in a country of haves, and there are poor here, there's no question, or people less fortunate. But when you take it to a whole new level, when you walk through the streets of Bangladesh, and so could you just spend a moment describing what that's like? And I know our listeners have seen that on television before, but you've seen it personally firsthand, and you've also seen what $15 really does for someone who's living in that country. Walk me through that, if you don't mind.
Sure. So one of the projects we are funding right now is 44 mothers and 44 daughters in a really remote area of Calcutta in West Bengal state. I was really shocked when I went there because it's a beautiful, nature-wise, scenery-wise, it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to. But the living condition is so poor. Of course, there is no running water, there is no electricity, there is no toilet. I learned the girls have no toilets in the school, so when they have period, they cannot go to school. There are all sorts of things like that. And the girls are still being forced to marry at the age of between 13 and 15, even today. Yeah. And the mothers, they just get stuck with very poor condition, looking after children, parents, and so on. And they're like living on the dirt, just with some kind of thatched roof, or sometimes just a plastic sheet wherever they can find. Condition of poverty or levels of poverty, I don't know how you can compare, because it definitely cuts into your self-dignity and self-image over time when the poverty is so severe and you have no way to lift up yourself. Imagine that you have no running water, you have no electricity, there is no doctor, things like that. That's their daily standard of living.
So when I close my eyes and I visualize that, I think of, most of us who live in abundance in comparison to that. And I wonder, how would we feel on the inside? Would we be completely miserable and unhappy? And then I think, when I've seen some of these folks who live in those conditions, they don't seem to be unhappy. In fact, quite the opposite, right? They seem to have this sense of joy and purpose in their life, even though their conditions are rather challenging, right?
Yeah, that's one thing I have learned by visiting. This is it's my fourth visit to India, but every time I go there, I realize it looks like we are giving, monetary wise we are giving, but I'm actually receiving so much more by meeting with these very poor people, but receiving their spiritual energy and attitude towards life. Like when we visit the poorest villages, always these women get together and collect all the utensils they can find in the village and give us like 10-course meal for lunch. They never eat with us because I think it's a very special dish that they only do it for guests. And they really treat us as, guests are gods for them still. So they really treat us with such appreciation and warmth and energy that, and also like orphanage we found in Karnataka state out of 3 or 4 hour drive into really countryside near Mysore. There too, like kids from horrendous background that I'm told from the director not to ask about what happened to their lives because it's too traumatic. These kids between age of 3 and 15 or 16, they have the best manners, best discipline, getting up 6 o'clock in the morning, meditate, literally sweep the ground of the orphanage. Of course, they're, like mischievous kids, but it's just, there's nothing, materialistically, there's nothing that they can show off or anything, but there is such deep, I really feel like a spiritual strength or something that's, I feel like I receive from them every time I go there.
Yes. And that's just, it's amazing. I share that so much with you. It's just so touching to see that no matter what your conditions are, you can find happiness and peace in your life. And you don't have to be dependent upon whether you have lots of money or material things. And it's really an amazing concept when you think about it.
Yes, it's really true. That's why, like, by giving, you receive is very true. And I think it's a privilege. For me, it has been a real privilege that Yoga Gives Back has given me. And I just want to share this as much as possible, what I'm learning and receiving with all the people who are donating for our cause, for joining our campaign. That's why I continue to film in India every time I go and show what your donation is doing there and show their lifestyle. Just share the culture and be a bridge between two extremely different communities.
That's beautiful. We're going to take a short break in just a second here. I just wanted to emphasize one thought I had in the show, the essence of Goodwill. Think of Goodwill as like a positive boomerang that as you give back, it comes back to you in other ways. And that's what I found when you find an organization that whether it's this one or anyone in your life that really inspires you, is that it really is self-actualizing. It really brings a sense of peace and positivity to your life. I'm Gregory Foster, and we'll be right back.
And now, let's return to Access Zen.
And we're back. Thank you for listening to a great episode here of Access Zen Radio. And I'm with Kayoko, and she's sharing with us Yoga Gives Back, and our theme, the essence of Goodwill. So before we went on break there, we were kind of talking about how Goodwill can transform your life. And I really want to emphasize that part in the rest of our show today. So tell me about the experience of this little boy that just fascinated me, that came from one of these really, poverty families in India. Share with me that and where that boy is now from a very small donation, because it just blows my mind how much $15 can do. It's just incredible.
Right. This is a boy named Guru Prasad. I think he's 18 today. He's at medical dental school outside of Bangalore. I met her mom, Jayashri, in 2007 when I first visited India. She just received about $150 worth of microloan from local microfinancing institute in Bangalore. She comes from extremely poor background. Her mother, her grandmother, everybody was very poor. She had to stop going to primary school, and she became seamstress at the age of 13, and she's been trained to earn money that way to help her mother and her parents, her family. And so it was, and when I met her, she was married with 2 children. Her husband was an auto rickshaw driver. And she learned about this microfinancing in the village. So she joined and she applied and she got the first $150. She was really happy when I first met her, but I could see, they only had one room, dirt floor with 4 people. And she was really hoping to make a difference with this money. And in 1 year, she bought her husband auto rickshaw to themselves. They used to rent it, so their profit was very small, but they bought it so that the whole profit was theirs. That really tripled their income, and she was able to pay back the whole $150 in a year to the institute, which entitled her to get the second loan, which doubled the amount of loan to $300. This kept going for a couple of years. She continued to do everything she can. She bought a sewing machine. She started to do a little shop in front of the house and started to gain more money. And finally, this little boy we met entered this medical college, small college, outside of Bangalore, about 5 or 6 hours north of Bangalore. So we were following this story every year with Jayashri, and we were just really delighted to hear that her dream has really come true. And right now he's in the second year at this medical dental school to become a dentist. He has 3 or 4 more years to go. And so as we were visiting Jayashri, we just decided to fund this kid's annual tuition, which is between $600 to $1,000. Can you imagine that?
Wow. I'm still blown away by the concept that this boy that you helped is now in dental school.
Yes. We are visiting him in 2 weeks in India, because one of the things I really remember how he was telling me when he was in high school that my mom's microloan is really helping me to get higher education. And he and his mom both said they want him to become a doctor or dentist and give back to their own village and community. They never talked about, I want to buy a house, I want to buy a car, which I think they really do think a little bit of that too. But their thing was like, let's become a successful doctor or dentist and bring your benefit back to your community. So anyways, this is one story that we are very inspired, and I just love to visit him to see how he's doing and share that footage or photograph with everybody of our community.
Mm-hmm. Walk me through the process. So let's say I gave a $100 donation or $20 for a yoga class. I gave you $20. Mm-hmm. Where does that go? How much of that $20 actually winds up in India that gets converted into this microloan that's given to this lady? Walk me through that process if you don't mind.
Sure. Just imagine you give $10. Women gets it. They pay back. So your $10 has lifetime of being used, recycled so many times, because this woman get the second loan, and the next year if she repays again, she gets a third loan. And in the meantime, hopefully in the good cases, their business continues to grow, and they also themselves learn how to, make their business more successful. That's I think a really amazing miracle.
Wow, that really is something.
Mm-hmm.
So then the money that they're making from this loan that they got raises their quality of life, enables them to then take out a second loan that they could use to, for example, with the boy you mentioned, what's his name again?
Guru Prasad is boy's name, and mother is Jayashri.
And that allowed him to get into dental school where he is today, correct?
Exactly.
Wow.
One thing, very interesting fact that Dr. Yunus shared is over the years, microfinancing has really proven that women are the best poverty fighters. And I think being a mother creates a special or motivation. They don't use the money for themselves. They just want their children to become healthy.
True goodwill
Yeah.
It's to benefit others, and then the boomerang effect is you get benefit back. That's how it works.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Well, that is just phenomenal. So how do our listeners become involved in this cause? Is there a website? Can they go to a local yoga class? How do they donate? How do they participate?
Yes, thanks for asking a very important question. First, if you're a yoga teacher or yoga studio owner, you can host a class for us, which you can find all the information at our website, www.yogagivesback.org. Or if a yoga student, but just want to participate in some events happening in your area, just check our website also. Or if you're just simply interested in a mission and want to support, you can just donate by going to our website.
Nice. Well, I love causes like this, that it's so clear how it helps, and for a very reasonable, donation, the benefit that it gets back, and something that really ties to my heart. So, as I know it will to lots of listeners. So that's really phenomenal. I just want to acknowledge you so much, Kyoko, for putting this together, because you basically started this yourself from scratch, correct?
Yes. We are like really grassroots organization, and I'm very...
Tell me about that before we close the show. Just tell me a little bit about what that first year like.
Yeah, first year was tough. I don't know, I don't feel it. I think every year we have challenge, but it's been all positive. First year, I think, to be recognized. I'm in Los Angeles. It all started from my yoga class. So first we had to be recognized that we're doing something important here. And having Grameen Foundation's partnership early on was very important. And Yoga Journal also early on helped us to advertise our campaign. Really by word of mouth, by yoga teachers who hosted our event one by one, who liked our mission. First year, we were just having like one class a month, and I was just promoting like crazy to please host an event. And we call it awareness and fundraising classes. It's not just money, but awareness campaign is very important component of campaign. Just to let everybody know that while doing your yoga, you can help people in India too. So to make a long story short, starting with Los Angeles in 2007, today, as I said, we have 100 events happening in 14 countries. How did that happen? It's all words of mouth. It's a really grassroots. I think yoga community really shares this essential message that we benefit so much from the gift of yoga. If we can help with just one cost of yoga class, why not do it? And that's how we grew.
Well, it's just an incredible success story, and I just want to acknowledge you again. Just really beautiful. I love this kind of stuff. Thank you so much. What's the website again?
www.yogagivesback.org.
Yogagivesback.org. Well, thank you again. Have yourself a wonderful week. We really appreciate having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having Yoga Gives Back on your show. Really appreciate it.
All right. Have a wonderful week.